listening to Convenience Matters, brought to you by NACS. Whether it's for food, fuel, drinks, or snacks, about half the U.S. population shops at a convenience store every day. We'll talk about what we see at stores and what the future may hold for our industry.
Welcome to Convenience Matters, and half of the population may be here at the NACS show. We're recording live at the NACS show. My name is Jeff Lenard. I'm with NACS.
I'm Donovan Woods with Fuels Institute and NACS.
And we've talked a lot about products, we've talked about services, we've talked about people. The one key component that brings it all together is design. We're going to talk about the art and the science of design today. People may or may not like science, people may or may not like art, but when you put them both together, you get something magical. And today we're pleased to have as our guest Joe Bona. He is the founding partner of all names, Bona Design Lab. Welcome, Joe.
Thanks, guys. Great to be here.
And Joe, we've known you for a long time. You've been on a podcast in the past. And there's so many areas that we can look at in design. We after we had you on last time, we said, we really could just focus on doors today. We could just focus on flooring. We could just focus on walls. And instead of going too wide, we thought we'd focus on something a little bit more narrow today. Just the New York City metropolitan area. Only, I don't know, 10 million people or something like that. Because one of the things that Joe has, living in New York and designing in New York and visiting stores in New York and looking at all what's out there, Joe guides some study tours when people come to town. He shares ideas on where you can visit. It's called New York Retail Excursions, and a checklist of things to look at. So that's enough talking. But when you look at stores in design, and not just convenience stores, how do you look at stores when you walk in? What's the first thing you do, or is it even before you walk in?
Yeah, for me, it's what they do to me emotionally more than anything else, right? So when we take a look at, whether it's a client we're working for or we're just out looking around at new things and trying to inspire ourselves, it's, when you walk in the front door, what do they do emotionally? Am I inspired? If it's a food store, do I gain an appetite? Do I lose an appetite? Do I understand what their offer is? If I'm in a non-food store, am I inspired to, wow, I want to really explore this. This is really wonderful. There's no one sort of thing that makes you do those things. It's a combination of, is it lighting, is it fixtures, is it the merchandise? It's all those things working together creates that sort of ambiance and that right feel that sort of provides the motivation to want to shop. So for me, that's where it starts. It's a bit emotional, but it's not like I walk in and say, boy, isn't that floor tile wonderful? So we don't look at it from a specific design point of view from that standpoint.
Joe, you said you don't walk in and look at the tile and say, wow, that's what got me in here. But I can think about myself, my wife, when we do see stores, we don't know we're thinking about that, but we do appreciate the floor design. We do appreciate the walls, the colors. So it's interesting that we're talking about this topic when it comes to retail fuel stations, because typically people don't think about that.
No, well, they shouldn't. Good design, people should walk in and not feel any of that, to be honest. And if someone does notice a floor tile, it's probably for the wrong reasons, like being dirty or something. So, yeah, those things do all add up to create that overall sense of, wow, this really feels good to me. But they really shouldn't be noticing the specific individual elements of the store.
So in New York, things tend to happen there, maybe also on the West Coast before they happen in the rest of the country. And a lot of what you look at is you look at food trends. You look at what's going on and how are people selling food. So what are some of the broad things that you see in New York related to how food's sold and what kind of palettes, both I guess, food and drink?
So the benefit of being in New York is it's really a living lab for anything retail. When it comes to food, we're, in New York, we've got people from all walks of life. And with that comes people's individual tastes, flavors, experiences from around the world. And you see restaurants popping up all over the place that have unique, offers. I mean, who would think that there would be a hummus-only restaurant, right, where you could walk in and you can get, hummus done 20 different ways.
It sounds like a Saturday Night Live skit.
Yeah.
But they're probably doing well.
And they're probably doing well. Now, do you eat hummus every day? Probably not, but it's one of those just super laser focused concepts on one individual thing. And so that we see a lot of that going on. It's sort of taken the Chipotle model, sort of we call it scoop and dump, kiddingly, but you sort of pick your carrier, pick a protein, pick the sauce, pick the and you
Kava too.
Yeah, and you kind of Kava would be another good example. And there's a million of those places that have popped up that focus on Vietnamese, focus on Indian, focus on Mediterranean, the same sort of concept. And it's just interesting in how they curate their story. So they got to make it believable if you're going to be the hummus guy. When I walk in, it's got to feel believable that they're really experts on that category. And so, those are the things that we just find interesting for those guys who are being that laser focused around a single idea of food. And we also take a look at, what are some of the new trends. There's a Michelin star chef that's opened up sort of one of these, fast casual places. And for us, it's just, how would a Michelin star, who really curates these beautiful meals and you pay a lot of money for, how does he interpret food on the go? And what would that look like? And it's, just quite interesting to get a different point of view on how he thinks of design or layout or communication and menu boards and things like that.
And for the record, the place is called Made Nice. It's on 8 West 28th Street, and I know that because I've been there, and if you Google Maps it, I think it still has the old whatever it was there. You wouldn't notice it if you were just walking down the street. They didn't spend a lot of money on the design on the outside, but then you walk in on the inside and the magic's there.
That's right.
I mean, you see that it's something special. You see a very open kitchen, and it's faster food. It's kind of like that the Kava that you mentioned, where it's within 5 minutes. It's at your table. You get one of the buzzers. You get that kind of service, but it's really good food, and it's something to really pay attention to.
Yeah, it's a high quality meal, and it's someone who's not in that business, and traditionally, where it's a high touchy feely business, high service. So here you walk in, there's no counter. There's someone walks up to you with an iPad. So even just the first interaction with the brand is completely different, right? There's not that counter with the menu board, that digital menu board that looks like fast food. This is this personalized service. He kind of comes up to you and can I help you, and explains the thing, and all of a sudden you're completely disarmed, right? It's not a traditional QSR type of a feel.
And I mean this in a positive way. It's difficult to walk away when somebody approaches you. Even if you're not sure on the menu, it's like, oh, you got to try the chicken today. You got to do this. Right. So it also just, it's that cheers mentality that we all talk about. It's like getting them and having a conversation with them, telling them a story, both with design and with the people.
Yeah, exactly.
Is there any crossover between the different designs you're seeing? Let's say we mentioned Chipotle and Kava, or different places that have their own feel. Is there anything that has a crossover regardless of menu when it comes to design?
And crossover in which way?
Just the feel of it when you walk in, that you see consumers go, I like being in here.
I think it's just that sense of authenticity, right? When I walk in, do I just get a sense of belonging, and that there's Feel Good's Chicken, for example. I walk in and it's just kind of this, it's a chicken place, but it doesn't feel like fried chicken place. It just has a different feel to it, and so I think it's just that sense of this almost feels healthier when you walk in the front door, and how do they deliver that? Well, it's probably the colors, the materials, the woods that they use, and it just it has a less of a fast food sort of feel to it.
Now, convenience stores are known for beverages, and some of the places that you also focus on is beverage-only places or beverage-dominant places, whether it's matcha tea or whether it's bubble tea or whether it's any of these other types of kombucha stores. Is there any sort of design logic that you present to look at how to convince somebody to buy a $6, $7 drink that has zero alcohol in it?
That's a tough one. I think Starbucks has done obviously the best job of convincing people to pay $6 for flavored water, basically, right? But or maybe flavored milk in their case. But I think it's people are willing to pay more for something that's got a greater perceived value, and something that feels customizable, where I can walk up and say I want a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and they feel like it's their concoction. I think those are people are willing to pay for that, and there are things that they probably don't do at home. It's a little indulgent, and people today they're looking for those little treats, and $6 for a beverage, it's a little treat, it's a little indulgent. Some people look forward to that every day. Some people look forward to it, a couple times a week.
Mm-hmm. And we have a lot of cup holders in our cars, and we have a lot of cars that come to convenience stores.
Now, you've mentioned the consumer response to design. How is it when it comes to talking to a store owner, when you're saying this is actually an important thing that you need to pay attention to? Is that as easy?
No. I mean, store owners, obviously, that's sort of where the science of retail comes in, because their focus is how much does it cost?
Right.
What's the impact on labor? What's all of the things that are really truly important into running a business day to day. There has to be a practical side to some of this stuff, and that's where owners sort of keep guys like us honest, right? So we don't have a clean slate. We can't design to our heart's content. We've got some rules to follow, and we've got to be practical in what we deliver. So owners are always concerned about, they want the best looking design, they want more customers to feel engaged, but at the same time they've got to pay the bills. And so
Yeah, and I like that the transition to talking just a bit about science is when your checklist, you basically have a checklist where you look at what is a store doing, how might it do something different, and it includes essentially what I'm looking at 4 things: branding / communication, number 1; number 2, the offer, and I assume that means products; number 3 is merchandising, and the 4th is impressions. Is there any one that when you go into a store, are they all equal? When you design a store, are they all equal? And how might you look at, how do you construct the perfect store?
We probably start off with the general offer. So, what is it that any particular retail is, what's their special hook? What are they famous for? What are they known for? And once you sort of understand that, then how do they deliver that? Where's it located? So then that becomes a function of layout. How is it positioned? If it's your signature offer, is it the first thing I see? Is it in the middle of the store? Is it in the front of the store? So how should it be positioned? How do I bring it to life through design? How do I curate some of the products and offers? Is that special kinds of fixtures? Is it something that's got all glass? Is it heated? Is it cold? And then communications. Is it digital? Is it static? Is it, do you need any of those kinds of things? Or is it, have you done such a good job of curating the offer that you don't need a lot of signs to say fresh bakery? So those are all, they kind of all work independently, but I'd say it probably starts fundamentally with the offer. And really, once you sort of understand that, then it's about really how do you bring it to life.
And related to what you're famous for, you also want to put them on stage. And I know some of your designs now, it's much more commonplace to light the shelves. Mm-hmm. But I believe, I don't know if you were the first, but your stores were the first that I saw where they lit the shelves. And that was at Duane Reade in New York. And it made toothpaste look like something you had to buy.
Yeah, that's right.
It just popped. And you see that in a lot of retailers now where it's just almost like they guide you towards products that they want you to give a little bit more attention to. And it could be solar tubes, too.
Yeah, that's right. Well, we just completed a store in Louisville for Shell, their select store, and we had lit shelves there. And one of the comments we've been getting a lot from consumers is they just think the store is beautifully lit. Interestingly, the store doesn't look anything like a traditional convenience store. It doesn't have fluorescent tubes. It's got a lot of low light levels, so a lot of highlights and contrasts, a lot of LED lighting, but the shelves are lit. And so it just brings, when you walk in, what really shines is all the product. And that's really what we're trying to accomplish. And, people feel good about that. It goes back to, what makes you feel good when you enter a store. There's something they can't really put their finger on, but emotively, it just kind of just feels good. And the products really shine.
Yeah, I have friends in Louisville, and I got emails from them about a couple weeks ago, and it's like, you got to check out this store. This is really cool. And it's like, oh, I think I know who did that one. So that was interesting.
There's a lot of things that don't cross over and some that do. And I was watching a documentary, Netflix, on Quincy Jones. And his whole thing was he did not want to be put into one category.
I saw that.
Very good documentary.
It is.
When he talks about a convenience store and people have a certain image of what it should be, it can only be this. how are consumers accepting the different styles that are coming out? Do they like it more? Do they feel confused as to where they are? What is your response? What have you seen?
I think consumers are pushing the industry to be something different. I think they experience things now in a very different way, and so whether it's watching something on Netflix, which I'm a big fan of, and just general retail and whatever their daily lives, wherever they go for other kinds of things, their expectations are just different. And I think they're expecting more out of convenience stores. And I think that's what's really motivating a lot of good retailers to sort of reevaluate what they're doing, what's their story, how do they deliver a better experience. I think that it's really being driven by consumers. It's not coming from the top down. I really think it's coming from the outside in. And consumers are really expecting us and demanding of us to make change and to be different, to be better, more importantly.
That's awesome, because I've been with NACS for 8 years, and I remember when I first started, I would hear that perception of, well, the C-store customer is this guy, and it was always a negative connotation. And I think it's nice to see that change is happening, where the consumer is intelligent, the consumer knows what they want, they do have taste, and that can relate or translate to the C-store industry as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's the old, I get a little annoyed, people, talk about, Bubba, right? That's the famous.
I didn't want to say it, but that's the one.
Yeah, and but I always, what annoys me is if you go to other kinds of places, quote unquote, you could find Bubba eating at a Panera.
Yep.
Right? And so he's paying a little bit more for a better quality sandwich. And, they also want to shop in better places, and they want to have better experiences. They want to have better food. And so this perception that we've got to design down to an industry, I think it's just completely wrong. And we've got to be designing up to what people want and what they expect and demand of us. And until we make that change in our head, that paradigm shift, we've got to, we're always going to be stuck in the past. But I think we've got to start focusing on what consumers are telling us they want and what they expect.
And with convenience stores, certainly time is of essence. Now, you want to have seating in some locations, slow people down, but you also, if they want to be in and out in 3 minutes and solve a problem, you want to do that. You see a lot of the products here at the NACS show on the show floor, mashups of things, caffeinated water, protein potato chips, things like that, where it's like, well, I need my protein and I need potato chips. I got them both. So time is always of the essence. You don't want to be the inconvenience store, as we heard the other day on stage. But then you look at something like Amazon. There's Amazon Go, and there's also Amazon 4-Star.
Yeah.
And have you had a chance to check out 4-Star?
Yeah, so I can't say that I'm a big expert on it, but from what I know of 4-Star, the brilliant thing of what they've done, it's really maybe even scary from some retailers. Someone who's dominated the digital space with online ordering and delivery has now been able to match that up really, really tightly with a brick and mortar solution. So what they do, if you aren't familiar with it, is they curate their store based on the zip code of that location, and it's all based on everybody that's been ordering online. So they'll know you in that zip code, what you've ordered the last 2 months. They'll know what you've ordered, and
that's not necessarily a good thing.
Well, no, but they've taken all of that and consolidated and then curated that into sort of their top 5, right?
That's very smart.
Or top 10 or whatever. But that's a way of really taking what they know and understand from their digital world and now are putting it into brick and mortar. So they really have the best of the best coming to life in a brick and mortar store. So if you didn't have time to order on your phone and you're walking by the store, you can kind of pop in and get one of those items. So it's really unbelievable, a little scary, as you say, but I think it just shows the power of Amazon being really a technology company that's kind of figured out retail both digitally as well as in brick and mortar.
So if you were to have one piece of advice for somebody who's looking at a design or a redesign, now you mentioned the offer, but is there anything else that you suggest, whether it's this color's hot, but maybe that's not the right way of thinking about it because 2 years from now it won't be.
Yep.
What are the guiding principles that you would suggest as you look at looking at all the trends in other areas, whether it's the quick service of New York City, whether it's Amazon 4-Star, whether it's all these, I know you're in all other markets. New York isn't the end all. I know you travel overseas, you go everywhere. What do the best places all have in common in terms of thinking about design?
Design with a purpose. And I think if it doesn't have a purpose, then it's, I've always said many times that good design can't save a bad idea, right? So if design doesn't have a purpose, customers are smarter than we are, and they'll call us out. And so if there's a really fabulous design, it's like, wow, I got to go check that place out. And I go in and everything else is fake, right? The offer's terrible, the customer service levels are bad, there's nothing there that's relevant to me that I really want, or I have just a bad experience. I eat something and I get sick, or I buy something and it falls apart. I mean, all of those things are going to be a problem. And so for me, design's got to sort of support the brand, what their message is, what they're trying to communicate, what it is that they're trying to deliver and execute. And so if that means that the store should be orange, well then great, because orange supports some part of the brand story and bringing that to life. If it means that it's got to have, crazy shapes, well, it's because that's part of their DNA and how they want to tell their story. So I it's probably not answering it specifically as to what new hot color there is. I think we try to stay away from that stuff and really just try to focus on making sure that design has a purpose.
So you're telling me if I want to open up a convenience store called Junk Drawer, it's a bad idea?
Probably a bad idea. Well, It could be a good idea, but you never know.
Well, Joe, quick, give your website so people, if they want to find out more, learn about how they can get in touch with you, see if they want to work with you, see if they want to learn from you. Can you give us your website?
Sure, bonadesignlab.com.
Well, thank you, Joe, and thank you all for listening to Convenience Matters.
Convenience Matters is brought to you by NACS and produced in partnership with Human Factor. For more information, visit convenience.org.